Hello, and welcome to another Allar video. For those who have been following my blog in the past, you recall that I did some static mesh animation based off vertex colors. Well, me and a few friends were talking, mainly me and Antim Win, who's also donated from the site, and you've seen some of his stuff before on this site. And we're just going to kind of bring this back to light because some of us, or we have some colleagues who are experimenting with this and not really sure how it's going on. So here we have a glow bug, and this glow bug is just some weird bug that's supposed to glow. In Max, it's got three textures. It's got a diffuse, a specular, and a emissive. And I've already go ahead and exported this to Unreal. And here I have an empty box. If you might have seen this grid texture from my past videos. Now, I've already created a material for it. Well, I've created a few materials and stuff, but basically I only have three textures here. I have, well, besides these flattened textures, which are now generated in the latest versions of EDK, but I have my diffuse, my glow, and my specular, all created by Antimwin. And so I'm going to go ahead and open up my material here. And the material I'm currently using for this is really simple. It's really simple. Diffuse, which also goes to the opacity mask. Then you have your spec, which is be multiplied by 1.5 and then being powered by 2, just to give it some contrast because it's an emissive. In fact, we're not even using the glow map. The spec map is our glow map. Whatever. Anyway, very basic material. You can't get more simple than this other than plugging them directly in. I want to go ahead and drop this into the map, or the static mesh here. Just go ahead and, oh, that's not it. Here we go. Here's just a bug version of that same material onto it. And let's go ahead and play the game. And lighting is very rebuilt, of course, but you'll see there it is. Nothing simple. Everything completely simple about this. All it does is sit there. There's no collision on it, but that's easy to fix. Now, see if we wanted this thing to pulsate as if it's breathing. Give it some animation. We don't want to really rig it, because rigging it will be too resource intensive, and we don't want to go find a rigger, we don't want to animate it by hand and all that stuff. We do want to give some life into it. So this is where we have a little tool here called Allar's Vertex Color Manipulator, based off of some concepts that Antim Win first threw to me, and I decided to test it and put it in the code and give it an implementation and see how that works. So first thing I want to do is I'm going to go into Vertex Paint Mode Display. And the only way I know how to do that, it's probably a better way to do this, is to bring up the Vertex Paint modifier itself, and then click this fourth button, first button, there we go, first button, cool. And right now everything's painted white, that's normal, everything's just white. Now I'm going to go ahead and close that Vertex Paint. So right now everything is white. So I'm going to go ahead and go into Vertex mode here. Actually, I'm going to go back to my editable poly just because, if I collapse Vertex Paint, it will still remain in Vertex Color Paint mode for whatever reason. But now I can just go ahead and grab my vertexes here. I'm going to go ahead and select them all. Now I want to go ahead and flood gray. And this gives me a 128 gray on all my vertex colors. And what that does is, basically, in order to bake some small vertex animation, there are many ways you can do it. The way I implemented it was 128 gray was a flat gray, very neutral, no movement along any normals, just straight up just gray. Now, when you implement this yourself, you can do all kinds of different limitations. In fact, this implementation allows for some more sophisticated animation, but I won't be covering that in this video right now. Now, with that said, say if I wanted his inner rings where he kind of comes together, his mesh kind of comes together to pulsate outwards. Now I want to go ahead and go into edge mode here, and say I want this edge here and this edge here, maybe that one there, maybe that one there. So I want to select an edge along these rings that I want to pulsate outward, just to give it a little bit of variety. Alright, cool. And then I want to go ahead and choose loop. It gives me my edge loops. Now I want to go ahead and right click and, oh, my menu is a little bit messed up. Go convert to vertex. I'm in vertex mode. This tool currently only works in vertex mode, but that's something that could be easily reworked later. And I want to go with, what color should I flood this with? I want to flood this with a pretty color here. I'm going to choose a color somewhere higher up. I want to do an even 220. So, no, my bad. I'm going to cancel that. I have this button here called Bake Vertex Colors. I'm going to go ahead and click that. And it's going to do its thing. And what happens there is it's going to take all these vertex colors. Basically, it's going to take the normals of the vertices and bake their normals and their orientations onto the vertex level. Now, this is, if you were to extrapolate this, you would end up with something called vector displacement maps, which I might go into a future tutorial later. There's some really cool technology there. We're starting to see that in the newest versions of Mudbox and things like that. But I'm not going to cover that now. But if you want to look more into what this can lead to, just remember the term, what was it? Vector displacement map. There's some really cool technology there. Alright, anyways, so now that these vertices are baked into these vertexes, we can go ahead and just close my little tool here. That's all we need this for. We can do other advanced little things. We can also lower the saturation. Say if we don't want to move these, like we can make these at 0.6 and just kind of dual out. Let's just do this. Say we wanted to have a half pulsating on these edge loops. Let's say we wanted these two edge loops in the middle to really stand out. Let's go ahead and crank that up to 1. Let's go ahead and make vertex colors. And these will, oh wow, I forgot to convert to edge, convert to vertices. And if you don't do that, it kind of remembers your last vertex selection. Convert to vertex. Okay, well, go ahead and go back to 0.5. Bake vertex colors. Then we'll go to edge mode. Select these two edges only. Go convert to vertex. Oh, I forgot I said look my edge loops. Awesome. Sorry about that. Edge loop. Now we can convert to vertex. Now let's bake at a full. See how these vertices are now more saturated than the other vertex rings that we've done? This will allow these to pulsate more as opposed to these other ones, because that's just how the shader really works, pretty much. Now, the way the shader works though is if I were to go into the negatives and I were to desaturate, make them black, they would actually have the reverse effect as saturating them. But that's neither here nor there. Now, with that said, we can go ahead and let's just go ahead and select our mesh here. I want to export this as, I have a few bugs here, but I want to export this as s_bug vertex colored, or I want to call it vertex painted actually. I want to make sure vertex colors is on under the mesh options. That's really important. Go ahead and click OK. Go ahead and fire up BDK again, and I'm going to go ahead and import my s_bug vertex painted ASE. I just exported it, and I'm going to hit OK. Now it's got no material on it, so let's just go ahead and apply the other material that we were using before onto it, and go ahead and now drop this painted bug. I'm going to put that one right next to the other one and hit play. You'll see that they're both just chilling there. Just chilling. That's cool. Now, we haven't really done anything. When we painted the vertex colors, we have to tell the materials in order to act upon these and to do something with this new information. So, let me save my package first, because that would be a little bit important. Go ahead and save this. And this package will be available to download at the end of this post that you'll see on 4course.com and also on Anton's website, which is under construction at the moment, but there'll be a link to that site too. Now, that said though, go to my materials. Now I've already made this to save time on this video. but this material is pretty simple as well. Go ahead and maximize this. Okay, maybe it's not too simple, but alright, so we have our diffuse. Let's go into our diffuse, and we have our emissive, just like normal. We multiply it by color here just to give it a little more something. Now, right now, alright, sorry about that. I just reorganized the material, that way it's easier to explain. But on the left, I loaded in that newly vertex color painted bug mesh, and you can see this material is an example on how to make its vertices, well, how to make it kind of breathe by animating its vertices using vertex color. Right now, this is kind of really sharp right now because I didn't take the time to do each edge loop and make them more saturated, make them relatively smooth and blend them and stuff like that. But that can all be done through vertex painting. But as you can see on the left here, these middle ones, the ones that are fully saturated with vertex normals, really stick out a lot more than these ones that are half as saturated. And so you can really fine tune how much you want these vertices to move. And right now we're just doing a basic along the normal type of movement, but it will help us achieve a lot more of what we want to do, more immersiveness with our bugs that can now breathe without being rigged or animated. Now, in order to do that, right now it's a little exaggerated, so I can show you the really difference between a full saturation. But let's just go over on how this is done. For this we have a time that inputs into a sine. That's really simple. It's been used just to create an oscillating wave. And then we multiply that by 20. The reason why we multiply that by 20 is so that we can get some really good amplitude for oscillating wave. Otherwise, these vertices don't really move that much. And I can show you that, but if I put this to 1, you'll see that they barely move. And that's a really subtle effect, which is cool, which is kind of nice. It's a little too subtle though. With 4, I mean, we get this good breathing movement. We'll go with 8 just to see how that looks. Now it's a little sharp because I didn't blend the other edge loops, but if I take my time to go and really blend in those edge loops with different saturations, it will look really smooth and really good. So I'm just going to have a happy medium, put 6 there, and that's pretty good. It allows our bug to breathe nicely. Anyways, with this oscillating wave, that amplitude is multiplied by our vertex color minus 0.5, 0.5, 0.5. Or in this case, I add 3 negatives. I prefer adding negatives in the material editor than subtracting because I'm crazy like that. But this vertex color, I'm going to go ahead and drag this vertex color into the diffuse slot so you can actually see it in action. And if you look at, I'm going to zoom in here, the vertices are moving along the animation, or along the normals of where we painted. And the 128 gray is completely stationary. So I'm going to plug our diffuse back in here. So that gives us a really nice effect. Now, the reason why we add or subtract half is that way our neutral gray gives us a 0 range, because these vertex colors are on a 0 to 1 basis. And with 128 being in the middle, we want no vertex animation when we're at gray. So we subtract 0.5, and that takes all our 0.5, our neutral gray vertices, and makes them have 0 movement. And if they're less than 0.5, then they'll have reverse movement. They'll have negative movement. If they're above 0.5, they'll have more movement. And then that's why you have to amplify that by your amplitude multiplier here, which is currently 6. That way you can get a bigger range. And that way everything's kind of relative, but through subtle variations in your vertex painting, you can really fine-tune control how much of these vertices you want to move. Now, once that's all multiplied, that goes directly into the world position offset node. And that gives you something, and that moves the vertices based on their normals. So, with that, we have this really cool breathing bug effect. Now, I'm going to go ahead and save this material. And it's going to take a while to save. And I'm going to go ahead and close this. Then I'm going to drop. Well, first I'm going to assign this new material to this bug here. And then I'm going to go in game. and lighting needs to be rebuilt. We should probably do that. Let's go ahead and rebuild lighting really quick. Alright, I just rebuilt the lighting. Go ahead and play an editor. And there we go. Now the spec map on this and the glow map is a little bit different than the other material because we want more blue, so it's a little darker. But as you can see, it is pulsating in real time, and it does so pretty nicely. I mean, that is a breathing bug without rigging, without animation. All you need is a simple material and some vertex colors. That's all you need. And we can really get into this. We can really paint all kinds of different subtleties in the animation and really make this thing come alive. And that's just touching the basics of the material. I mean, a time sign oscillation is one of the very, very most simple things. I mean, you can throw in some randomness and have different things pulsate at different frequencies. I mean, you can break down your vertex colors into specific ranges and have math extrapolate those smaller ranges into much more higher movements, and then you can do various clamps and checks and basic if statement workarounds. That way, you don't want to use an if statement in a shader. If statements are pretty slow, but you can use clamps in order to simulate an if statement through math. If you can do that, you can have different parts of the mesh animate at different times based on different parameters. You can do all sorts of things. I mean, you can animate a door opening, like a full door with all these blocks and stuff, as long as their vertex normals are aligned correctly and they're painted correctly. And you can really push organic shapes, because now that with the new UDK we can actually do vertex painting on skeletal meshes, you can combine this, and now you can have this thing rigged and animate and have it walk around, have it wiggle around, but also have it oscillate without wasting all that keyframe data, all that time involved, and having it pulsate and having it breathe and having it on a per animation basis. You can just bake it out through vertex normals. So the package that I'm using to test all this in will be available for download, and I created this in the May build, so you have to use the May build or later in order to use this, but it's all there. You can go ahead and take a look at it. Thank you for watching, and hopefully I'll do another video on this or more, depending on how things go. Thank you.